Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you for being right on time for those of you who are. We are going to give just a few more moments for people to trickle in. We know there's a lot of interest in our AMA. But if you'd like, the chat is open. If people are interested, you can put in your name, where you're zooming in from, and your discipline or focus for your career. All right, well, we already have quite a few attendees, so we're going to go ahead and jump in. We are recording the session, so if you have to leave early, miss any of it, want to hear something repeated, don't worry, this will be posted on our website in the next couple of days. And if you can also, it'll be public, so you can share with anyone else who you know that wasn't able to attend. They'll be able to see it as well. It's so cool to see so many people in different disciplines.
Yeah, welcome everybody.
Awesome. Well, I will introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Maikiko. I am the Deputy Director at WIF. I use she, her pronouns. I am so excited, as always, to talk about this program, our WIF Fellowship, and the fourth class that we're going into. So thank you all for your interest. On the call today is also Chloe, our program coordinator, and Maria, our manager of career programs. The three of us are here to answer any of your questions. Maria is really running the show here, so she'll give you all the logistics and let you know everything you need to in order to make sure your application gets in correctly and on time, and also all the details of the program itself. And if for whatever reason we don't get to your questions, that's totally fine. Don't worry. We can take emails from you at our programs at wif.org email inbox, and we will try and get to those promptly. You have, for the fellowship, quite a bit of time, so don't worry too much about questions there. We recognize for the Blacklist WIF Episodic Lab, deadline's coming up a little bit quicker, so if you have more questions on that program, I would get those questions in ASAP. We'll also try and get to as many questions for that process as possible. However, we are not able to respond to all the questions around the Blacklist site. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but there are two different application processes. So you're aware of, you apply either through the Blacklist or through WIF. And so we can't answer technical questions around the Blacklist application, but I can give a little bit more light on that as we get further into the webinar. All right, so for some housekeeping, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. If you hover over the bottom, you'll see a little bar come up with all the options, and the Q&A already has some questions in it, so great job, people who are populating that. And then if you see a question in that you also want answered, you don't have to retype the question, go ahead and like it, and so we'll know that's a popular question that we should try and get to live. But then other than that, please try and, ask questions that you think will be relevant to the whole group. We can't give notes on scripts on this call, unfortunately. And if you have questions or if you see people with questions in the chat, go ahead and refer them to the Q&A box. We won't be looking at the chat for questions, just for intros. All right. And without further ado, I will turn it over to, I'll give a little bit of background on the program, and then I'll turn it over to Maria. So the WIF Fellowship started on our 50th anniversary in 2023, and it really is a culmination of all the programs that WIF has offered in its half century of history. So we're really proud of it. It is a program that is designed to foster community, help advance careers, make sure people have what they need in this very challenging time in our industry. And really that is a network that you can use, right? A leverage for any connections, relationships, the things that remain vital to anyone who is trying to work as a professional in entertainment. And so with that, we knew we wanted it to be a long program. It's a full year of support and activity, and really thinking about intentional benchmarks and goals that people set throughout the course of a year. Of course, after that year, whoever is a participant is basically a family member of WIF for all time to come. Our alumni network is also extremely active, and so that's also a huge benefit of the program. But really, it has been such a joy to get to know everyone who's been a part of this community, really see people flourish, even in a time where we know work is a challenge, and our industry is in a challenging place. But having that community, especially across disciplines, to hear from one another and how people in various fields are supporting themselves and each other has been so gratifying. One of our favorite outcomes so far is that multiple fellows have produced short films together. We hope someday it'll be features, maybe someday soon. But really, things like that, the outcome is not only just camaraderie and friendship, but also production and making things together and making career moves, hiring each other. It's really been just a wonderful outcome that we are so proud to support. WIF, of course, is a longtime organization in the space. And in this time, again, in our world and society where we know a lot of these kinds of programs are under threat, we are here to be strong in our mission. We are not changing anything about what we do. And we are also here to stay a safe community for all people who remain underrepresented in Hollywood and in media that we see. This program is open to all applications. We definitely emphasize our support of women, non-binary, and trans filmmakers and professionals. And I think that it needs to be said that this organization, even though there are things that are very scary in the world, we are not deterred in our mission, and nothing about what we do has changed in terms of wanting to advance careers in order to transform our culture. So if you are applying to a WI program, please know that we have your back in terms of wanting to provide a vibrant community representative of the world that we live in. And I think really to further a point, but you don't need to hear, we want to transform our industry, right? So if you're trying to figure out what is going on in this crazy time in our market and in Hollywood, we really also want to foster people who work in Hollywood who care about each other and care about a safe work environment, who care about adequate compensation and sustainable livelihoods. So that's another huge part of this program. You'll hear us talking about that a lot. We'll have sessions on big topics and meaty topics like that. And we'll also want to hear from people about things of that nature that you'd like us to dissect and get into. And if for whatever reason you're maybe not a fellow next year, but you're interested in these topics, we'd love to hear from you as community members too. So always feel free to reach out to us and let us know. I wish WIF would do programming on whatever issue you're thinking about right now. That's really valuable to us. So again, thank you all for being here. I will hop in occasionally with some answers to the questions, but Maria, please take it away.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Maria Abraham. I'm the manager of career programs at WIF. I'll cover some basics about the applications and try to hit some of the things that come up frequently as questions. And I want to leave the majority of the time for the Q&A portion, since I know that's what you're all here for. Just to start off, so the WIF Fellowship application is open. It opened on October 1st, and the deadline will be January 7th. We do have a 1-week deadline extension to January 14th for WIF members at the creative level and above. The WIF and the Blacklist Episodic Lab application is also opened on October 1st. That application deadline is coming up more quickly on November 3rd. So definitely want to point that out. And there isn't a deadline extension on that one. As Meikiko mentioned, and I want to note again, for the Episodic Lab, which we run in partnership with the Blacklist, you can apply either through WIF or through the Blacklist. The deadlines are different and the application components vary depending on which organization you apply through. So please look at each of our websites for specifics on that. I also want to note that writers who do choose to apply for the Episodic Lab through WIF, you can check a box on your application to opt in to also be considered for the writer cohort of our WIF Fellowship program. Lastly, I want to note that the writers who are selected for the Episodic Lab automatically become WIF fellows for the year-long fellowship program after that. Let's see here. Okay, so some timelines about notifications and the programs themselves. So for the Episodic Lab, we will be notifying everybody the week of February 16th. And then the lab itself starts on March 3rd and will continue for the month of March. For the fellowship program, we'll send out notifications the week of May 4th, 2026, and the program will begin in June of 2026, running through May of 2027 for a full year. Let's see. So I also want to mention that all of the information we're going over today, you can find on our website, wif.org. If you click on the fellowship page or the Episodic Lab page, it's all there. We even have a PDF of each application linked on the website so that you can take a look at all of the components of each application. As Maikiko mentioned, so the 2026 fellowship, this will be the fourth year of the program, and we're really so excited about it. It is a year-long program, June 2026 through May of 2027. And we think it's a really unique program because we can support pretty much any career track behind the camera or behind the scenes. We support writers, directors, producers, also managers and agents, composers, cinematographers, script supervisors. This year, we have added a specific application for film scholars, programmers, and archivists that we're very excited about. And if you don't see your career track listed on our website, I want to emphasize that that does not mean you can't apply. You are absolutely welcome to apply. You can always reach out to us at programs@wif.org if you're unsure and you'd like to let us know what your career track is and ask if you are able to apply. Generally speaking, we welcome applications from all artisans and crew. If you're a strong candidate and if we are able to support you with mentorship, we would love to welcome you into the fellowship program. Let's see, the number of fellows changes year to year, but 2026 will likely be a cohort of between 50 and 60 fellows. And we have 5 core components of our fellowship program. Number one is community building. We really feel that the most important aspect of the fellowship program is the community. So we prioritize making sure that all of the different fellows across career tracks in the program have the opportunity to get to know each other, possibly collaborate with one another. We also are intentional about connecting each current year of fellows with fellows from previous years because we think that's so important as well. Cohort mentoring is another core component of the program. So each career track cohort, for example, editors, will meet as a group in a mentor circle led by a professional in the field, and we'll have several group mentor circle meetings throughout the course of the fellowship year. We also program educational sessions and workshops for the full cohort several times throughout the year. Sometimes we're able to program supplemental workshops that are maybe more specific to certain career tracks as well. Career strategy is a big part of the fellowship year. So the programs team meets with every fellow one-on-one to dig deeper into fellows' goals, projects, and next steps so that we can plug in support where we can. And we also have a fellowship year plan. So we ask each fellow to develop an individual plan to complete during the fellowship year that aligns with their experience level and prioritized goals. So for example, it could be updating your professional reel or website, revising a script, planning to workshop a script through a table read, lots of options, but we meet with the fellows about that. Fellows set benchmarks throughout the year, and then we're here to provide support and accountability. Let's see. Okay, one question that we get a lot is about do I need to be based in LA to be eligible for the program? So this is an LA-based program. In order to be eligible, you do need to be in the LA area as there will be a lot of in-person events. As I mentioned before, the network that you build during the program, we feel is the most important aspect of the fellowship. And that kind of community building really happens through in-person events and collaboration. If you aren't currently in LA, but will be by June of next year, you're welcome to apply. We just really want to put the caveat out there that we don't recommend that anyone move to LA specifically for the fellowship program, as that is a big financial commitment. And there may be other programs where you live that could provide similar support. Let's see. Okay, I'll move on to some components of the application and then we'll go into the Q&A. So you can find a PDF of each application linked on our website. You can see exactly what the components are for each career track. Each application does ask for your personal statement, your bio, and a resume. And in addition, most applications, depending on career track, ask you to upload work samples. So, for example, if you are applying for the physical producer track, that might mean uploading film budgets and schedules you've created. If you are a composer, it would mean providing links to music you've composed. If you're a writer, you'd upload a complete TV or feature script. Um, so a strong application for us, regardless of career track, is one in which a candidate can clearly articulate their career goals, as specifically as possible. And we love to see a personal statement that describes what a candidate's goals are for the fellowship year in particular, and how a candidate thinks the fellowship program can support them in achieving those goals during the fellowship year. That's always very helpful for us to see. Um, uh, so we get a question often about the level of experience needed to apply to the fellowship program, and it really varies, especially by career track. So certain career tracks are definitely more competitive than others. For example, the writer and director tracks are very competitive. Also, the producer and cinematographer tracks. If you would like to get a sense of the experience level, that's probably going to be in each career track pool this year as well. You can take a look at the bios of our current fellows that are on our website. So on the fellowship page, there's a Meet the 2025 WIF Fellows button. The bios of the 2025 Episodic Lab Fellows are on our Episodic Lab webpage. So that should give you a good idea of kind of the level of each career track in the fellowship program. Okay, so I think we can open it up to questions now and do our best to answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. I am already seeing quite a few questions about the Episodic Lab. We will get to those, I promise, but we'll start with some fellowship questions at the top and then move into the Episodic Lab. So question around submitting to multiple tracks in the fellowship. Totally valid. You are allowed to do that, especially we know there are many multi-hyphenates in the mix right now. So if you're interested in both being, say, a writer and a director, we understand the inclination to apply to both. I will say what you should apply to ideally is the career focus that you are most intent on for the year, if that makes sense, right? So if you're really genuinely split and you would be totally happy being in either group, okay, submit to both tracks. However, if you're like, oh, I really am going to crack the nut on my feature this year as a writer, so I think I should focus on writing this year, or I'm going to think about representation in that field, that we recommend just having some intentionality around that. I think applying for two various disciplines, generally fine. If you're applying to three or more, then we do start to get the impression that you're not quite as clear as where your focus is right now. And again, doesn't mean you couldn't get into at least one of those. You would not get into more than one, should clarify. You would only get into one that you apply to. But I'd say two at max if you are interested in multiple tracks. Again, there's no rule against applying to more than two, but just in terms of the strength of your application. And in terms of what makes a difference in looking at those applications, Maria emphasized there is a range in terms of experience and where people are coming from in their career tracks. However, I will say there is a level of professionalism, which you will see in the bios if you take a look at our fellows from this current year, who they've been working for a little bit. You know, I think sometimes there's a rare occasion where someone's like straight out of film school and already clearly on their way and maybe is a good candidate, but that's the exception. I'd say for the most part, our fellows have been working for a couple of years, have some experience under their belts in whatever their discipline may be. One exception I will say there is sometimes our fellows are transitioning to a different career. So they have quite a few years in one field, but they're looking to go into another one. They have enough experience in their original career path where they know what the one they're looking into is doing and have friends and colleagues in that field. So while they might be new to that field, they know how to speak to it, they understand what it entails, and also they understand what would be helpful for them in moving into that trajectory. Um, Maria, do you see any in that vein that you see?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so I see a question. Can someone reapply with a script from a previous year, which has been rewritten considerably? Yes, you can. I just want to emphasize that you would want to have made significant changes to the script for it to be more competitive as you're applying again. But you are absolutely welcome to apply with a script that has been adjusted from the previous year. Let's see. Okay. I see a question. I was part of the 2020 mentoring program. Can you talk a little bit about how the program has evolved as a fellowship? Yes, love this. So we've my Kiko often says that this is our greatest hits program, and I think that that's true. So the mentoring component of the fellowship program is still as strong as it was during the mentoring program in the past. But we've added educational sessions and workshops. We've added career strategy. Um, we have this full cohort of multiple career tracks that all get to know each other instead of being kind of more siloed into individual career tracks, so that it's a much more cohesive full year of support, I would say. Let's see. What if you don't have a second screenplay to submit for supporting material? Would the application be discarded? No. If you have a strong feature or TV script to apply with, even if it's just one, you are welcome to apply with that, and your application will not be discounted in any way for not having additional optional material on top of that. Let's see. Does membership status within WIF make a difference when considering applicants, or are members and non-members considered equally? Absolutely. Everyone who applies is considered equally for fellowship spots. It doesn't matter if you are a WIF member or not a member.
I'm seeing a few questions around the director qualifications and experience levels. In terms of having short films, that is really, for the most part, I think people who apply into the directing track have at least done short films or music videos. I would say it'd be really hard to be competitive in the program without a reel with some idea of your work and vision. But you don't have to have had directed a feature or episodic TV. So just to be clear, what this is the, level at which we expect our fellows are, hopefully maybe breaking into features from shorts or into episodic television, but are not quite there yet. So that's about what we're looking at in terms of what you submit. And in terms of writing, if you're a director who also wants to submit your writing, we will take a look at it. For directors, I'd say your reels and your content is more important than the scripts themselves. For writers, obviously, we do need full scripts, so don't just send treatments or outlines. We do need a full pilot or a feature script to be considered for the writing program, but for directors, that is not required. And you are
Yeah,
looking to submit a pitch deck, as someone asked.
I'll also add about applying for the director track. One of the reasons that we ask for a narrative sample, whether that's fiction or documentary, as in a short film, rather than only commercial or music video samples, for example, is that we really want to get a sense of your vision and voice as a director. And in commercials and in music videos, typically, um, that is determined by another entity, and it's hard to get a sense of your voice there. That's not always the case, but it does tend to be. And so we usually do look for at least one short film in your portfolio. Let's see. Okay. Can you talk more about the fellowship year project plan? Is that something we come up with as part of the application? Do we get support in developing the project? Okay, so, in your personal statement, this is a great place to tell us what you would like to achieve during the course of your fellowship year and how you think being in the fellowship program can support you in reaching those goals. Once someone is admitted into the fellowship program, we meet with everybody one-on-one to dig deeper into those goals, maybe to help you make some adjustments or pare down or kind of clarify what your focus will be for the year. And then we help you to set targeted benchmarks in really 3 months kind of increments of the program. We see where we can plug in support. Maybe that might be a Skillshare feedback, like with somebody in your cohort that's giving feedback on your script, where we might know someone that we can connect you to, where we can maybe point out other grants or programs that you might want to apply to based on what your goals are. It's totally individual. It really varies, especially by career track. Again, maybe someone's who's in the writer track might have very particular goals about finishing a new feature script. Someone who is an editor may want to update their reel or might want to secure editing a new short film during the course of the fellowship year. So that very much varies. It's very individual, but we do meet with each fellow one-on-one to help each fellow plan that and then benchmark out their goals. Let's see. Okay, how many fellows are selected? So it does vary from year to year. We are projecting that there will probably be 50 to 60 fellows selected in 2026. To give an idea, in 2025, we received 750 applications. So it is a competitive program, but that's looking like the cohort for 2026 will be 50 to 60 people. Let's see.
So I see a question, Maria, about the differences in the various producing tracks. Do you want to take that one?
Oh, yes. So, okay, I haven't spotted that one, but I imagine it's the difference between the physical producing track versus the independent producer track. So, physical producers are line producers, production managers, the folks who are really focused on the logistics of a production, creating the budgets, creating the schedules, versus the independent producer is the person who maybe originates the project, has, for example, a piece of IP that they're developing, that they bring on the financing for, they bring on the creative team and shepherd the project through production, through post, and distribution. So those are those two tracks. They definitely interact with each other during the course of the program, and there are educational sessions that they'll attend together. But we do like to have separate mentor circles for those two groups so that each can get really specific knowledge catered to their those career tracks.
And that person also asked about the distinction then about being a production executive. If you are intending to stay working, say at a studio or a network, or that's your goal, then that's the track that you would apply to, right? Someone who's more behind the desk. And also the executive track has a variety of fields in which you could apply to as well, say marketing, business and legal, really think widely. Whoever is making this business run, we want your application. WIF definitely wants to support the decision makers and people on the business side. So if you consider yourself an executive and plan to stay in that track, apply to the executive track. I will say sometimes the confusion we get from applicants is people really want to be creative producers or independent producers, but they pick physical producer or executive. But what you're really hoping to do is make your slate of like 2 features and a TV show, right? That is the independent producer track. That's the creative producer track. If you know you want to stay a line producer or you want to stay an executive or are looking to go into those fields, that's where you would apply. But if you're looking to assure projects off the ground in the moment as an originator, as Maria was describing, then you would apply for the independent producer track.
Let's see, I'm seeing a question about the scholars, curators, and archivists track. So what would the fellowship look like for someone in one of those fields? And the person asking the question is a film critic and programmer, which is very exciting. So this fellowship, it will look very similar to the other career tracks. So for everybody in that category, we will find mentors to support you who are professionals in those fields. For example, critics at publications that we respect, and programmers at festivals that we're connected with. So it would be a year of mentor sessions with professionals in the field. It would also be, along with the full cohort, the same educational workshops, career strategy, and project planning with the programs team. Let's see. If your focus is acting, but you also write, do you still qualify to apply? I mean, we love multi-hyphenates. So if you are a writer, you are welcome to apply to the writer track. Absolutely. Yes.
I'm seeing some follow-up questions about the director applications. I would say you need at least one short film in order to be eligible, or some visual content that we can see that you directed. That is a big part of understanding your qualifications and how you measure up against the rest of the pool. If you have not directed anything yet, I would say wait till next year, direct something in the next 12 months, and then apply for the 2027 class. Oh, this is a great.
Our,
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
you go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
I would say a fellowship area for using emerging technology. Again, we haven't named it, as Maria mentioned in the beginning. If you don't see your particular track or career, that does not mean you can't apply. We want you to apply. We haven't necessarily thought of your discipline, but it doesn't mean we couldn't find mentorship for you, and we definitely could find community for you. So if you are in a different discipline that you don't see, like emerging technology or anything else that is not yet listed on our website, feel free to apply anyways. There is a field in which you can, tell us what you are looking to do, and we will consider your application just like everyone else's. Again, if we feel for some reason we absolutely could not find someone to mentor you in that specific field, then it'll be a little bit trickier for us, obviously. But we're really excited to see disciplines that we haven't thought to list yet. It's why we added the scholars, archivists, and critics section this year, is because someone applied and didn't see themselves but wrote in that's what they were. I'm like, oh, that would be great if we could have a circle of those folks. So by all means, put in your field if you do not see it listed.
Absolutely. Okay, a question. Are professional references needed or accepted for the fellowship? References are not required for the fellowship application. If you had a reference that you felt was important to share with us, you could include that in your application as one of the additional optional materials. It is absolutely not required, however. Let's see. Okay, question. Can we submit a pitch deck instead of a script? If you're applying as a writer, you're required to submit a feature script or a TV script. Let's see, in the directing fellowship application, it says that the sample should be no longer than 15 minutes, but is there an ideal or preferred length? No, I mean, you can feel free to submit the piece that you feel best represents your voice, regardless of length. Our jurors may only look at the first 15 minutes. They may watch beyond that, but we're only guaranteed that they'll look at the first 15 minutes. So use that information to decide what you want to submit and what is in those first 15 minutes.
I'm seeing a few questions on reapplying, which is great. We welcome people to apply if you haven't gotten in previous years to apply again. I would say one of the strongest things to do is to emphasize in your statements or wherever you can in the application, let us know what's changed, right? Let us know where you've made edits or improvements to anything that you are submitting within your application. If you don't know, if you're submitting the exact same thing, I think there's maybe a question of, would that be as competitive as it was last year if you didn't get it? And so it's helpful for us to know, oh, this person has made these kinds of improvements to whatever the project may be. If you are reapplying in a different field that isn't directing or writing, as an example, just let us know what has changed in the last year and what you've worked on. How have you grown in your particular profession? And do let us know that you think that there has been growth, as that's helpful for us to see. And again, I think if you take a look at our current fellows, it really is helpful. We are not here to say everyone should apply and you'll all get it. It's a very competitive program. I think someone asked somewhere in the list how many applied. I think we had somewhere around 740 applicants last year. So it's quite competitive if you heard that we have only 50 or 60 slots open. So before you apply, make sure you're taking a look not only at the application, but who's been in previously and do you think you're at about that level?
Let's see, to apply to the producer track, meaning the independent producer track, do you need to share your slate of projects or just one project you're working on? We do ask you to share a slate. And again, if you look at the bios of the producers who are currently in the fellowship program, you'll get a sense of kind of the size of the slate. If you have one project only, it's probably not going to be quite enough to be competitive in the applicant pool. So you'll probably want to have more than one project on your slate if you're applying to the independent producer track. Yeah, okay. So how would you consider a co-directing credit on a feature film for a directing fellowship application? That's a great question. I think we'd want to know in your personal statement what was your part in co-directing the feature. If you could describe that for us, that would be really helpful. And how you collaborated with your co-director. If you, in addition, have another work sample that you directed by yourself, that would definitely strengthen your application and help us to understand your voice. Okay, someone who's applying as a director, can I submit a pitch deck for a feature project I'm working on? Absolutely. So in addition to your directing samples, for example, a short film, there is space in the application. It's totally optional, but you are welcome to put in additional materials such as a pitch deck for a feature project. For a writer, is it okay to submit just one strong pilot episode? Yes, absolutely. So we require just one strong pilot or pilot or feature script. If anybody wants to add additional written material beyond that, you're welcome to, but it is optional. If you were a part of the mentoring program in the past, can you apply to the fellowship program? Absolutely. You are welcome to. Um,
Does seem like we still have quite a bit of writing questions, so we'll start getting into those. But if you have additional questions around the fellowship, keep those coming too. Everything's on the table as of now. But just to go back up to also because they dovetail or they connect to each other, so we'll explain that also. So as Maria mentioned, the Episodic Lab applications are open now as well, and they close November 3rd. So right around the corner. Make sure you are looking at that process if you are interested in submitting to the Episodic Lab. You can submit with either a half-hour or hour-long script. Sometimes they're a little bit in between too. We know how with streamers, everything's a little unclear, but we do recommend that you understand the format you are submitting to, meaning you understand length of time and duration of what typical comedies run for and what typical dramas run for. Again, we understand there are variations these days, but we stay mostly within either half hour or hour long, but it can be any genre, really doesn't matter to us. We love having multiple genres represented in the lab itself. To clarify, WIF has its own application process. So if you apply to the Episodic Lab through WIF, you will be read by our jurors. Versus if you apply through the blacklist, you'll be read by their readers, and your scores determine how far along you get in the process initially for this lab. In our finals round, we bring our short list together, and so we're picking the final participant group as the blacklist NWF team, but initially our preliminary jurying happens separately. So you are actually allowed to apply via both. If you're interested and want to pay the application fees for both, you're welcome to apply both through WIF and through the blacklist. It doesn't hurt your chances. In fact, it could help it, but you are not by any means required to apply through both. And again, if you have any questions about the blacklist process, we have their FAQs listed on our website. And they have an email that you can email as well if you have questions about their application process. The episodic lab takes place in March of next year. Throughout the full month of March, there are evening sessions generally on Tuesday and Thursday, but we do also have some weekend days. So if you're interested in that program, your March should be pretty wide open, and you should definitely be in Los Angeles for all of that month. All of the sessions are in person, and they're really exciting. They build on one another. They're a combination of both professional development and craft based. So you're both learning the ins and outs of being a TV writer right now, but also getting notes on your script and how to strengthen your pilot. It should be a pilot, an original, and not a spec script. And again, I saw some questions there about the distinctions in applying to the writing fellowship. You don't need to reapply for the fellowship if you applied for the episodic lab and want to be considered for the fellowship. You would just check a box and say, I would also like to be considered for the fellowship. You also can just apply to the episodic lab and not want to be considered for the fellowship, then don't check the box, and then we will only consider you for the episodic lab. So that is totally fine as well. And you can submit a different material in addition to your pilot if you want to be considered for the writing fellowship as well. To clarify, you wouldn't get into both. So if you got into the episodic lab, you will automatically be a fellow. You wouldn't then, be accepted into the writing fellowship because you would be a fellow already. And then there will be a separate circle for those who are, maybe submitting as feature writers or other types of writers who couldn't get into the lab. There will be a second circle of writers who are also accepted into the fellowship here.
Let's see. I see a question about what to include in a resume, either for the episodic lab or for the fellowship. Um, so there's really three places in the application where we can really get to know you and your background and how that makes you the perfect person to tell the story that you're telling or to do what you're doing in your career. And those are the personal statement, the bio, and the resume. So, use those to the max to help us get a clear picture of who you are. So if there hasn't been space for certain things in your personal statement or in your bio, maybe the resume is a great place to list that kind of thing, like relevant work history that maybe wouldn't come up so much in your personal statement or in your bio. That's really more about you as a creative, for example. So there can be a lot of variation, but I think use those three places wisely to give us the clearest picture of who you are as a candidate and what your goals are. Let's see. What is the typical time commitment for the fellowship program? That's a great question. So, it might be for the mentor circles, you might be meeting maybe for an hour or an hour and a half every other month. We typically have two sessions each month in the fellowship program. There are a couple of months where there are exceptions. For example, like December, we don't program as much because there's so much going on at the end of the year. And in March, because it's really busy for us with the episodic lab going at the same time. But generally speaking, there's usually two events a month. We try to keep these events in the evening so that they're after work hours. If anybody has kind of a typical day job, we understand that people are working, are needing to make a living, are needing to parent and caregive during the fellowship as well. So one of the things we try to do is give a pretty far heads up about the schedule. So we try to give everybody the schedule for in 3 month blocks so that you have a 3 month heads up about what the schedule will be and can, try to do what you need to do in your own life schedule so that you can attend as many events as possible. We completely understand that everybody is not going to be able to attend all of the events, and that's okay. We want to make them available for you so that you can attend as much as possible and can get to know your cohort in person as much as possible. But there is a lot of flexibility, and we want it to be accessible and realistic for everybody.
think some great questions here towards the bottom from someone who's had a 10-year career in a different sector, say marketing, but not in entertainment. How competitive would you be? I think, and also writes and directs films. If you have a knowledge of the industry and want to be, say, a marketing executive in Hollywood, but not a marketing executive in advertising, but know what it might take to transition into, right? Or have connections, have done your research, by all means apply. I think that that's something that we pride ourselves on. You don't have to have already had your foot in the door to get your foot in the door here in this program, though we understand some of the circles are a little bit more competitive than others. But if you are doing your homework, you can say articulately you understand what it takes to be a film executive. If you haven't yet done that, say you like, I understand what it means to be on a desk. I understand the different levels. I understand what development is, things like that. Just clarify for us that you are clear on the role that you're going into, then you could be competitive for this program. If you are a marketing executive not in the industry who wants to be a writer, then what matters is the strength of your script, right? We don't care where you worked previously if you're a writer or what you're doing if that's not in the industry at all. Actually, for many of the folks who have submitted our scripts, they're not working in Hollywood, but they write consistently, right? And their scripts are strong. So I will say for the writers, you don't need any experience to have been a paid writer in Hollywood by all means, but know that your scripts are strong. I hope you are not submitting your first draft. They're scripts that you probably have noted. They're scripts you've already submitted to other programs and had some attention. So think about it in that way. And then in terms of the business question, someone asked about the various IDs in the business track: acquisition, financing, distribution, creative, all of it. Any of those, if you already have a sense of where you are in the business world, in the business executive world, put which particular field you want to focus on. I will say the business circle does become a little bit eclectic, right? The people at different fields within the business side will be in a circle together. And then occasionally we will separate some out. If there are more than one, but of a specific sector, you'll get an additional mentor focused on your particular layer of business. So it really depends on who applies at any given year, but all people on the business side are welcome to apply.
Let's see, a question. Since those admitted to the Episodic Lab are also admitted to the fellowship year, should we discuss career goals specifically for the Episodic Lab time period or the entire year in our personal statement? I think if you're applying for the Episodic Lab, your personal statement can really focus on what your goals are for the Episodic Lab period, the 1 month long program there. If you're selected for the Episodic Lab, we'll be able to meet with you as part of the lab process to get your goals for the full year fellowship year after that. So I would say focus on your goals for the Episodic Lab if you're applying to the Episodic Lab. Do you work with Canadians at all at any level? Yes, we love Canadians. We have Canadians in the fellowship every year. That said, these are Canadians who are based in LA and working in LA. So again, anyone of any citizenship is welcome to apply. We just want you to be based in LA. And again, we really don't recommend that anybody moves to LA for the fellowship program specifically, because we're not able to make sure that you are hired, and it's a huge financial, decision. LA is a very expensive and unpredictable place. So anyone is welcome to apply, but again, we want everybody to be in LA for the program.
Here's a good question about the project plan. Should it be personal, like a website or a film, or industry impacting? I love that question. I think it could be a combination of two. It could be either or. There really isn't a limit. We do want it to be something that will help advance your career over the course of the year. So one might argue in any capacity that's personal. But if you are, say, working on a project that is, bringing female filmmakers together, and you really want to make sure you're doing that on a regular basis, we love that bring that project plan to the fellowship. It happens pretty organically every year, but we love to see our fellows come together and support each other in those kinds of plans, building community, building opportunities to work together. So, you get to be creative in the project plan for sure.
Yes, and we've had, let's see, producers and even managers whose goal was to expand their network of women, trans, and non-binary people in the industry to be able to collaborate with that community moving forward. And so they had a target number of meetings, say, per month during the course of the fellowship year, and that was super productive. So there are just so many ways that your goals, can be shaped for the fellowship year. It's totally up to you and what your priorities are at this particular juncture in your career.
If your co-writing partner isn't based in LA, that is okay if you are. Really, only one of you needs to attend the sessions. I will say they're if you're a team and there's someone who wants to be participatory in the program, either the fellowship or the writing lab, again, as Maria said, being in LA is an important part, as so many of the programs and projects are taking place in Los Angeles. But if you're willing to do the program on your own and your teammate is okay with that, that's totally fine. Um, and if you are in driving distance from LA, that is also okay.
Yeah. Okay, this is a great question. I have a book I'm writing that I then want to workshop into a TV script. Could I submit my book manuscript or part of it as part of my application, along with my plan to adapt the book concept? So, in order to be in consideration for the Writer Fellowship or the Episodic Lab, you do have to submit either a TV script or a feature script. So, it's incredible that you have a book. If you don't have the script written yet, then I would wait for a subsequent year to apply when you do have the script version of the book. But congratulations to you on having a book written. That's incredible. Um,
Someone asked about competitive applicant as a new lawyer in the business track. We love it. Well,
Love it.
congratulations on being a new lawyer. Yeah, I mean, I think again, like with all the different circles, it really will depend on who applies this year. We, of course, are excited to see many disciplines and people who sometimes are newer to the discipline, but it really will depend the chemistry, who we think builds out various circles, especially for the business track. It's I would say fairly competitive. People do generally have a couple of years of experience, if not more, who ultimately get selected. But it really also can depend, especially if you are, doing something new, breaking into new territory. If you have professional experience, again, in that role, maybe in another sector or worked for a long time in a different capacity, but are ready to take on the role of being an attorney or an executive, just write that in your statement. Again, if you're fresh out of school but you are well studied on the industry, you know what it takes, you understand in this example what an entertainment lawyer does, just be clear about that in your statement. Let us know that you are solid on what types of clients you want to represent, why you're excited to do that work, and I think that will help make your application competitive.
Let's see, a question about applying as a director. Would you say you need to have more than one short film? For instance, I have only one short, but I feel it is representative of my voice. So yeah, if you're applying in the director track, if you have a short film that is outstanding and that is representative of your voice, please apply with it. You don't necessarily need to have multiple work samples to apply for the directing track. We really just require at least one outstanding short film. I do want to point you to the current fellows bios on our website. Please take a look at them as a gauge of the level of the director cohort this year, which I think will be in line with the director cohort next year as well. And I think that's good information to have. Let's see.
I
And
think oh, go ahead,
uh,
Maria.
oh, I was going to say it's same for writers. I'm seeing a question. Is it enough to submit just one strong script? Absolutely. It is optional to subscribe to attach additional material. We really just need to see one strong feature or TV script.
I will say about solo scripts, if it is a script that you have submitted previously and it is still your only script, I would recommend either changing it up, again, telling us how you've improved it. But if you haven't written anything beyond one script after multiple years of applying, that is a consideration for us. So, of course, if you have one strong script, great. But if it's a script that has been submitted and is still your only script, that would be probably a harder challenge for you to surmount in the pool itself. Um, I will I will say this, actors are front of the camera disciplines are the one that we generally don't I don't think we have a rule against it, but we generally have not provided circles for actors. As many of you know, this town is really an actors town in terms of the number of people and the volume of people trying to look to work professionally as actors. So it is the one circle that we haven't yet come together. It doesn't mean we couldn't. I will say with actors, one thing that we want to support them doing is actually thinking about how to be as multi-hyphenate and comprehensive in understanding the industry as possible. So as you know, many actors are writers and producers. So if you are an actor but also write and produce, I might recommend applying to one of those circles because that's really where the strength is. We generally have focused on behind the camera as well because that is where we see the disparity in gender, right? And in terms of the power dynamics, we are really working hard to get to gender equity behind the camera in all fields. And for acting, of course, we know there's disparity as well there too, but for WIF's focus, it generally has been behind the camera and behind the desk.
A question about the length of a resume. Can it be 2 pages? I don't think that we have a limit on that. It's just a PDF that you would upload to, to the in the portal as part of your application. So if you have a 2-page PDF that's your resume, I think that's fine. Yeah.
And we are coming close to time, which
Oh, yeah.
is incredible. It always goes so quickly. Thank you all for these excellent questions. I love the question about advice around applying and
Me
what
too.
specifically helps you stand out. And that, always is the question of the day. And for me, really in this moment, I think articulation and clarity is so important. The thing that is tricky, well, I'll give the bad example, right? If you say, I, you know, generally want to be a director because I wanted to do this since I was a kid, and that's it, right? Like that's not enough of information for me to understand what sets you apart from everyone else applying. If you can articulate your vision, how you see the craft that you are embarking on, why it's important to you, and also have some distinction amongst your peers, even, right? Presumably, if you're going into something, you have friends who are also in that field. Understand what makes you different from your friends and colleagues who are also in that field, and not in like a bad or competitive way, but just why are you unique? Again, in this moment where work is so hard to come by and we know it's a challenge, you do have to stand out both in your technical ability, in your natural talent, in your vision, and your clarity on where you see your career going. And again, for those maybe say in the business sector, I understand that could be a little bit more challenging, but especially for those who are thinking, I want to stay in the game. And as an executive per se, like I'm excited to see where Hollywood goes and, even in the next year in A, B, and C ways. So just being really clear on what excites you, what makes you passionate about your particular field, and how your vision is unique. Again, I know unique is an overused word when it comes to these programs, but if you don't have a strong sense of identity in what you're creating, then it's hard for us to differentiate you in the application pile. And I do think that there's something to be said for this moment too. So if you have an articulation about how you are very passionate in this moment about continuing to stay on this path, we want you to apply. We're not going anywhere. We hope you're not going anywhere, but be clear on why this moment is important to you and making sure you stay true to your path and your calling in these particular vocations.
Yeah, and I love what you wrote, and I want to acknowledge that it is so much work to apply for fellowships and grants, and we definitely do not take that for granted. We're honored to receive your application, and we really do, read through them and consider them deeply. It is a long game, and I want to remind everybody out there that sometimes it takes a while to find your fellowship community or to find your grant or your advocate. But to keep going, it only takes one yes. And we are all in one big community together, and we're happy. We're just very lucky to be able to support people through this fellowship program and appreciate all of your questions. I think Chloe popped this into the chat too, but if we didn't get to your question or if you think of something else, please do reach out to us at programs@wif.org so that we can address your question there. Yeah, I think that's
Bye,
it.
everyone. We look forward to getting your applications.
Bye, everybody.